and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into the fourth and final iteration of the Wicked Weed Brewing Company barrel-aged Guilty Pleasures barrel-aged Imperial Pastry Stouts that I bought from Wicked Weed's bottle shop in Asheville over Christmas break. Today's is called Milk and Cookies. It clocks in at 11.6% ABV. Just as with the others, it's just got a nice clean design on here. This one specifically has added golden raisins, cinnamon, and vanilla. And if I recall correctly, two of the beers in this 4-pack were 12.2% ABV and two were 11.6. This is the second one that was 11.6. Either way, they're very high ABVs on these beers. So yeah, we're gonna use our nice pub glass here today. Plenty big enough to get this in, so I should be able to get this poured relatively aggressively to try to give this a good head, since we have plenty of room for head expansion. Yeah, just straight down the middle. Again, you know, pretty active in terms of carbonation on these. Don't know exactly how well that head's gonna hold, but we'll take our quick visual. Absolutely pitch black. I can already smell massive aromas coming off of this. The head is gonna reasonably quickly dissipate. It's just rushing up so quickly out of this beer. The first three did that as well. So let's just get right up over this and get the information out we need. Okay. Yet again, it does smell to me like some form of a whiskey barrel. I don't know the exact type of whiskey, but that's what it smells like on my nose. This one, you can smell a little bit of that cinnamon and vanilla. There's nothing on the nose at all that smells like raisins. I mean, maybe I'll taste it in the glass. I don't know. But I feel like the vibe they're going for here is kind of a maybe oatmeal raisin cookie, kind of, you know, dipped, I don't know, cinnamon, vanilla, golden raisins. That's what I would make if I had those ingredients and I was doing cookies. But it smells really, really nice. Aside from the barrel and the cinnamon and vanilla really popping on the nose here, yeah, you can still smell that there is a very distinctly roasty underpinning to this. So no real challenge getting the aromas out of this. I didn't expect to smell raisins on the nose, but you know, maybe we'll be surprised and we'll actually get some nuance there in the flavor profile. But it looks great, it smells great. Head is actually holding pretty well here. So let's just jump right in, see what this one's about. Oh yeah. Oh, that's really nice. Okay, so let's talk body and mouthfeel first. 11.6 Imperial Pastry Stout. Weight-wise on this one feels really kind of on the border between a medium heavy. It's not quite as oppressively heavy as you maybe would expect for this ABV range, but you know, it's above average. It's just not top end for my money. In terms of the mouthfeel, on this one, you can really feel the resistance though. This actually does get a reasonable bit creamy as you agitate on the palate, and you can feel that it has an inherent thickness. It is 11.6. So I gotta say the mouthfeel is impressing me more than the body, but the body's not bad. It's above average. It's just not quite as weighty as I would expect for 11.6% ABV. In terms of the flavor profile on this, it's absolutely delicious. So this presents itself very much on the front like the prior three have. It's not a sweet beer, it's an Imperial Pastry Stout. It's a beer version of some dessert inspiration. And I think that I nailed it before I even sipped it, that this is supposed to be kind of like an oatmeal raisin cookie, because it actually does taste a lot like that. The flavors really pop in this glass. On this one in particular, I gotta say, the barrel aging aspect of this beer is a bit more subtle than it was in the first three. It doesn't overpower the ingredients, which I actually really appreciate. The fact that I'm getting a very clear vanilla and cinnamon coming straight through in this flavor profile is really, really nice. I gotta say, subjectively, this is the one that I like the best of the bunch of four. It's really, really nice. Admittedly, I am a huge fan of cinnamon, but I gotta say their kind of dessert inspiration for this beer, if my suspicion is right, and I believe it is, they've done a very, very good job with this one in particular. So I'm gonna jump back in for a second sip. let everything re-intensify. We'll pick it apart again. I'm going to pay careful attention to the nuance of the underpinning malt bill, as well as see if I can detect those raisins. Then we'll talk about the balance and the finish. Take two. Yeah, barrel pops, but it's a bit more subtle. Immediately with the barrel up front, you get a very rich roasty malt bill. There is kind of an underpinning of a slight coffee-like suggestion, as well as dark chocolate suggestion. But really what I'm getting on this is just how crystal clear the vanilla and the cinnamon in particular are. It really does set the stage for putting me in mind of like an oatmeal raisin cookie. Now, there is a mild suggestion of some kind of fruit cobbler-like characteristics, not dissimilar to what you might find in a barley wine, but it's clearly with a richer, more roasty bend because of this malt underpinning. So yeah, I would say the raisin aspect is there. There is this kind of rich fruitiness, which raisins naturally have, but I wouldn't say that it really jumps out with a big oppressive raisin flavor. It's much more of a suggestion, just like this suggestion of dark chocolate or cacao and this suggestion of kind of a coffee underpinning. And that really is coming from the malt bill, strictly for these richer roasty edges. This is not a bitter beer. It's not a sweet beer, but it's a very, very flavor impactful beer. So talking about the balance on this, I love it. Honestly, I think they did a great job here. In fact, the first thing that jumped to me was just the relative lack of intensity of the barrel on this one compared to the prior. I personally really like it much better. I mean, again, it doesn't say what the barrel is. Nowhere on here. I've looked on all of them. I can't tell you. But it does smell and taste of whiskey. But it's not oppressive on here. This is kind of the final, feather in the cap little addition. It's letting the underlying base beer be the star of the show and kind of letting their dessert interpretation of what they were doing with this pastry stout kind of do the talking. So it's malt bill, cinnamon, vanilla, and yes, raisins. They are present. That's what this beer leads with. The barrel is the added bonus. It doesn't overshadow anything, and that takes a deft hand. Whatever barrel they use, however long they left it in there, on this beer in particular, I think that it helps make a much nicer, cohesive, well put together beer. And indeed, yes, subjectively is my favorite. So balance, I think they nailed it on this one. So what about the finish? Well, again, it is barrel aged, but the barrel isn't quite as intense on this one, so the finish on this beer is not quite as long as it was on the others. I would say it's kind of high end of average. You do have a little bit of a whisper of barrel that lingers, but mostly kind of where it finishes out on this, interestingly, is with residual bits of raisin, vanilla, and cinnamon. So it's these three ingredients they added in. So while you do have to do a little digging to kind of pick the raisins out, it may take you a couple sips. Once you say, aha, there they are, as it gets further and further away from the roasty kind of side and it's moving its way into the finality of the finish, that's when the raisins really become crystal clear because there's less intensity of other flavors that it's, having to compete with to come through. And it's very nice. It does end with raisin, cinnamon, and vanilla. And I really, really like that. And yes, there's still slight residual bits of barrel, but again, that's like the lowest on the totem pole for these intensity of ingredients. And really the raisin, cinnamon, and vanilla is very equally voiced in terms of intensity all the way to the end. It's very, very nice, guys. I have thoroughly enjoyed these beers. I had a suspicion I would like them when I saw them. I'm glad I picked them up. This one is another winner. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, go with my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Wicked Weed Brewing Company's barrel-aged Guilty Pleasures Milk and Cookies variant, an Imperial Pastry Stout clocking in at 11.6% ABV. This, of course, barrel-aged. We don't know the barrels, but we're guessing some form of whiskey. This had added golden raisins, cinnamon, and vanilla. Wicked Weed based in Asheville, North Carolina. So guys, this was, I mean, just random dumb luck. I saved this one for last, but subjectively, I enjoyed this one the best. So this being the final one of the 4-pack, I'm kind of glad that I ended on such a high note. I really, really enjoyed all of them, but this one in particular, as I am a huge cinnamon fan, and the balance on this one I thought was particularly off the charts great. It really did well for me. So this one was a bit more interesting compared to the other three, in that it wasn't quite as forward with the barrel on this, which led to what I thought was a far superior balance, and it gave a lot more nuance and subtlety to the other underlying flavors, both from the malt bill and certainly from the additives. It was absolutely amazing. The counter to that is that there were aspects of it that weren't quite as robust, shall we say, as on some of the other variants, because barrel aging, where it's a lot more pronounced, does a lot of things to a beer, notably on the finish. But overall, this beer did exceptionally well, and indeed, out of all of the categories, there's two that did not get a perfect score, so we're just going to jump to the two in question. The first was the body. So the body on this, it felt above average for the style, for the ABV, but it wasn't top tier. For top tier, it would have had to have just a bit more oomph, a bit more presence, a bit more weight, and it just wasn't quite there for almost 12% Imperial Stout for me, but still above average. I did give the body a 7 out of 10. The second category that did not get a perfect score was the finish. And again, this is directly related to the barrels. This really, for my money, was just kind of high end of average. It was longer than your average Imperial Stout, mainly owing to the pungency of flavors. Yes, that was there, and certainly the additives also had a big part to play there, but it being a barrel-aged variant, you would expect a bit more intensity from the barrels, and that certainly would have driven the finish out, as it did on the others, but this really, it wasn't. It was dialed back on the barrels, but I actually overall thought the beer was better for it. It just impacted the singular category harder than on the prior beers that I tried. The finish on this one does get a 6 out of 10, and that does of course leave a perfect 10 out of 10 in the remaining 8 categories. That's aroma, taste, mouthfeel, head and retention, appearance, balance, my subjective thoughts, and example of style. So the total score on, here we go, another mouthful, Wicked Weed Brewing Company's barrel-aged Guilty Pleasures Milk and Cookies is a 93 out of 100. Guys, to say it's well above average is an understatement. I don't normally go for pastry stouts, imperial or otherwise, but these that Wicked Weed did were really, really good. The way that they crafted them, put them together, kind of focused on letting the additives speak, it really paid dividends in the beer drinking experience. And I think that they all paired very well with this really nice underpinning malt bill that they put together. And this, for sure, I thought was the best example out of the 4-pack that I had. I absolutely loved it. Really glad I found these in the Wicked Weed bottle shop. I've not seen them in grocery stores, not saying that they aren't being distributed nationally, but I did get them direct from the brewer in their bottle shop at one of their brewing locations and restaurant. Fantastic, by the way, if you're in downtown Asheville, I highly recommend it. Regardless, guys, another great beer by Wicked Weed, and this is one I absolutely, if you can find it, you definitely want to get your hands on it. Folks, that is today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications by hitting that bell icon. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.